I'd like to give a special thanks to Global for their generous support of this program.
Oh, this was a hard question, Bob. I'm a human just like you are and trying to figure that out. AI is not in control. It's how you use AI. Ultimately, we're in a human business. They spend years, if not a decade, doing the copying and pasting. You really shouldn't spend any time doing that. No one is learning really well. COVID really changed where we were working, and AI is really changing how we work. The gift that AI is it can do the production work for us. It's going to be better designed because there's a lot less pressure and people have more time. They thought, well, let's invest in our young professional. Everyone at the firm has stayed. Not one person has left. You become a lot more human if you use AI and use it properly. It really comes down to leadership and how they want to reflect their values. Instead of AI taking away what was the architect or what was the designer, we're really seeing that it's underlining what the values are of that practice.
Somewhere right now, a talented designer is copy pasting details, finishes, and door schedules into a set of CDs instead of designing the inspiring workspace needed to attract a fragmented team to come back to the office. That's not a people problem, that's a time problem. And AI has the potential to hand a huge chunk of that time back, and workspaces might get the qualitative time needed to significantly improve their organization's performance. Welcome to What the F is Happening to the Office, the podcast where we dig into the issues that are driving how work and workplaces are evolving. Hi, I'm Bob Fox, and if you're an architect, designer, workplace strategist, or just someone trying to figure out what the office should be, you're in the right place. Every guest brings something unique that will change how you think about the workplace. So please subscribe. It helps more people to find us, and you won't miss an episode. Today's guest is Valerie Trent, CEO of Thezo. She's a licensed designer who spent about a decade practicing before starting a technology company. She realized that most firms were burning most of their hours on documentation, the coordination, the red lines, the cut and paste work, much of it repetitive, instead of design thinking that shapes how a space feels to work in, which drives real value. That observation led her to start building AI tools aimed at reducing the repetitive production work so the people trained to solve the physical, spatial, and human problems can spend time solving them. What happens when people designing workplaces can spend more time for research, problem solving, for actually understanding the humans who will use the space? Valerie, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start with the whole premise of the show, how the work environment's changing. And where does AI fit into that story? Is it a workplace design conversation or is it an operations conversation?
Well, I think it's both. The COVID really changed where we were working, and AI is really changing how we work. And so it's initiating changes across the board through operations, of course, and design firms, and then also through operations in our clients, which therefore, hopefully, if we're good designers, if we do our job well, is reflected in their spaces.
When you were practicing design before you left, what's the typical split in the way that you spend time between problem solving and design thinking, which I think most designers really like, and the documentation, the more tedious work that we all have to do?
I was early on, and so I probably spent about 39, 40 hours a week doing tedious work. It wasn't a lot of the creative. And I specifically remember a few times where I spent too much time doing the creative, right? Like picking finishes for landlord services projects when you really shouldn't spend any time doing that. And one night there was a lovely senior designer and principal at a fantastic firm I was working for, and they were coming up with the focus wall that was 3 floors high in a fabulous headquartered projects outside the DC area. And I popped my head up behind Revit copy and pasting outlets from my desk and was trying to give my ideas when it comes to the creative of what could this wall look like. And I hadn't met with the clients. I knew none of the programming. No reason. Of course, it was kindly dismissed. But I think there are thousands of designers that would love to be part of that creative process. And they spend years, if not a decade, doing the copying and pasting. And it's a waste of our talent and our young designers.
You and I have talked before about the apprenticeship that designers go through in this industry, and it's kind of been that same way for a long time. What does that have to do with the quality of workspaces that get built, and how can AI, change that?
Well, I think in the 20th century, we really switch apprenticeship into production work, and production work became the apprenticeship. And so there's not true time to consume and understand details. It's just rapid fire. And no one learns well like that. And then when production is squeezed and squeezed and squeezed because we've slowly commoditized the work, uh, no one is learning really well when it comes to that. It's not true apprenticeship anymore. And so the gift that AI is it can do the production work for us now. And if it does the production work for us, we can reinvent those apprenticeships how we see fit. If you're a firm that wants to spend a day a week, and I mean, there's a great case study with one of our clients where they're a small, mid-sized firm, about 30-person firm, and they weren't necessarily getting the best talent, right? Um, and they really quickly, when they started implementing AI production, realized they were going to have a lot of time. And they thought, well, let's invest in our young professionals, our early professionals. So every Thursday, if you have 3 or less years in the industry, it is a learning day. You do not do work. You follow a principal around for the morning. So you're going and witnessing negotiations, you're witnessing business development meetings, those leadership conversations, you're learning early on. And then in the afternoon, they have their technical principal sit and talk about complex details and also code judgment. And so they're learning again, like very experienced things that normally would take a decade for somebody to understand. You have to go through that rapid fire 2 or 3 times and finally it hits. They're learning it in a quality way with that time. And then in the late afternoon, they have study groups. So they're also really helping each other, understanding their AREs, their HIDQs, other certifications. What the firm's finding is everyone at the firm has stayed. Not one person has left in 10 months, which is amazing, saving money right then and there. The early practitioners are less liability, right? Less red lines because they're actually understanding what they're building and designing in Revit and AutoCAD. And everybody overall is a lot happier. They're even so happy that they're starting to have a regional reputation, and other high quality applicants are trying to come to the firm. So they're naturally solving their own problem by just teaching their own people. And I think that is, it's the most human way to build an apprenticeship. But ironically, the way they're able to do that is because of AI and because of technology. Another example too, to hear it, but there's
Yeah, no,
a there's
that's
a
a great
team.
story. Yeah, so sure, share the other one with us.
Yeah, there's a team at a large firm, and the principal of the team decided he understood how to use AI with production, and he has timed it so that I'll speak to Thizo, and he'll send us the test fit, approved test fit on a Friday. On Monday morning, he opens his inbox. He has the BIM model completed, the CD set completed. And it's not completed. We'll talk about that later, but it is at a point where it can be heavily redlined, scrutinized. And so he prints it out and he redlines it with his entire team. So the senior designers are there, the juniors are there, everyone's sitting around, and they block out their entire Mondays every time they do this in order to just sit as a team. So they're team building, but the early professionals can ask questions. The senior designers can get more involved with mentorship. I mean, I think it's great that they kind of like order lunch in and it's like what we all hope to have once a year, they're getting almost monthly because of AI. And ultimately it's enriching the entire team, right? As Gen Z, we've all seen is they want to work from home, but also want to feel part of the team. And this is a great way to keep them incorporated and learning and everybody communicating on the same bandwidth.
Yeah, and I think what's exciting about that, if I listen to what you're describing, it sounds like the social interaction in the firm is actually improving and creating a much healthier environment for those people.
They're able to really understand each other's strengths and limitations. The senior designers, classically, we have mentors, and I'm really close to the mentor that was assigned to me. To this day, he's an advisor for Thizo, and it was a great working relationship, and it always has been. But that's not enough. He didn't have time to go over every project and explain to me how he was thinking through every little detail. And I think that as an industry, we have really lapsed on apprenticeships and mentorship. And this is giving everyone the opportunity to relay the education and the learnings that you've had if you're more experienced, and then also gain that, soak that in with those interpersonal skills as well that we all know and need.
So if there's a lot of education and social interaction that's occurring, can you share with us other things that people would be doing given the time that they get using Thizo?
It really comes down to leadership and how they want to reflect their values. If it is education, apprenticeship, mentorship, then they do programs similar kind of framing, such as those two cases. Sometimes they want more billable time per head. And so they are just getting more and more projects, right, per person. Now, we could talk about that as well as kind of what's happening with that. I don't think that's helping the burnout rate at all or retention with them. But there's some firms also that say nobody works past 5 o'clock. When you turn in a project, when you're done with a project, you are required to take 2 weeks off. That's it, right? How great is that? Hawaii is fantastic year round. Some firms are really leaning into more of applying to more competitions, like artistic competitions, because that's where their values lie. And so instead of AI taking away, what was the architect or what was the designer, we're really seeing that it's underlining what the values are of that practice. And maybe it's a one man, one woman practice. Maybe it is an international firm, but I think it's exciting. We're able to really lean into what we like to do as leaders best.
I'm thinking that there's been a lot of talk about AI eliminating jobs, and I feel like that tide is starting to change. And I know even in my own experience using AI, I feel like I'm able to do more than what I could without it. And I feel like what's happening is that we're able to take on more work as opposed to having to lay off people or people sitting idly by. I mean, can you share some insights that you might have gleaned from Thizo in that respect?
Well, something that I see from afar that's coming true, and I called it. I'm going to pat myself on the back here, but 100 years ago we had doctors, and now we have pediatric radiologists. People are specializing more and more in the medical field, and frankly, we're tapped out. We're too tapped out in architecture for everybody to be able to be a specialist in everything. And so, if you can learn the code judgment and practice the creative and understand the details earlier on in your career, I hope we have more and more people leaning into what they like to do and what they're best at. And maybe you're a window specialist, right? By the time you're 35 or 40, how phenomenal is that for the client and for the firm and for the individual? Or you can specialize in energy efficiency, right? You can specialize in neurodivergent spaces. You can specialize in so many things, and not when you're 50, maybe. Now it can be earlier in your career, and it really helps the entire industry if we understand those fundamentals earlier, because we're not just copying and pasting outlets for a decade. It's important that we look at AI as a tool to help us, frankly, become more valuable, not lose jobs, become more valuable as individuals and as the firm asset at large.
You raise an interesting question that I hadn't really thought about before with the application of AI to the practice of architecture. Do you think it's going to tend to create more specialists, or architecture's been traditionally a generalist practice? So I'm curious how you see that evolving over time.
I mean, we look at an example like Art Gensler and how he really leaned into this landlord work, right? That everybody else was kind of staying away from. And look, now he started and created the largest firm in the world. And I think we need to be able to get the fundamentals earlier on in our careers so that we can really lean into what other practitioners don't have time to, right? And they're leaning into other things. So maybe it's landlord work, maybe it is churches and synagogues and places of worship, and that's what we specialize in. But if you can specialize in that earlier, you become more valuable for the industry sooner in your career. And so, yes, I absolutely think we're going to become more and more specialists and more quality output and more valuable to society at large sooner.
Well, I'm thinking the design thinking process is one where it almost requires a generalist approach to solve unique design problems so that you're getting a diverse perspective on different types of issues that you're having to deal with. Do you think that somebody using THESO or AI to practice is going to be able to get that range of solutions that they can apply to specific or unique problems that arise?
The way we built these out is that it can help you with a wide variety of problems. There's always more and more people that say, "Hey, can it do this and can it do that?" We're specifically as a firm might not be there yet, but the technology, by and large, is there, and it's not hindering education or diverse opportunities.
Let's talk about a little bit of a different topic, the speed of change. I think that the construction industry has always been one that's kind of slow to adapt. And so, how does AI help us to absorb that change and adapt to that change?
Well, it gives good practice. I think we all know leadership oftentimes is sitting in a white conference room and there's fear. You make every decision in life as a human out of fear, out of love. And there's fear to adapt and fear to change. That's human nature. Um, but I think we have seen, even in the last year, AI firms are starting to use more and more AI for their RFPs, for their rendering. Of course, we've all been using AI for business development when it comes to LinkedIn and polishing our emails on Microsoft Office and Google platforms. And I think we're seeing more and more adaptation and slowly. And we're getting there. And it is helping people loosen up a little bit and understand that change is almost always good. It's just tough at first. And so we're seeing people slowly change in and really be open-minded about AI.
I think you've been a real leader in terms of pushing the envelope with the profession. And I'm curious how you might suggest to others how to stay up on the technology, how to look ahead. What are some suggestions that you might have to help us adapt to that rapid change that we're experiencing now?
Something I've told a lot of mentees, and I would tell leaders in the industry, which are a large portion of your audience, is understand where the money is coming from. So technology has to be funded, and it's funded a lot of times by VCs. And I think it's really important if you are purchasing AI for your team to understand what are the motivations of that tech leadership that you're partnering with, and what are the motivations of the investors behind that tech leadership. We've seen many times as practitioners and also just as humans outside of practicing technology where you're like, there's a lot of bells and whistles on this, but it only is about 60% useful for me. There's reasons for that, and there are financial reasons for that. And so, um, yes, you can stay up, you can subscribe to certain newsletters, you can look for all the events in your local city to go to, hear panels, connect with leaders in the industry, have conversations with them, grab coffee. But I ultimately think that when it comes down to it, when you are looking at technology to implement in your firm, that it's really important to understand what the motivation is behind the tech leadership and the financial leadership that's backing them. Are they trying to make money? Do they actually care about your feedback when it comes to the product being a great product? Are they trying to, is it a personal challenge for them? My story is specifically very personal. I don't think anybody with a university degree should be copying and pasting outlets in Revit for a decade of their life. That's a waste of brain power in my opinion. But we have lots of technology that the founders weren't, it's not their own problem, right? And ultimately, take them into consideration when you doing your research and understanding what's out there and what's going to actually help the firm.
You talked a little bit about leadership for the firms that you're working with, which are some pretty impressive organizations. What are the characteristics that you see of these firms who are adopting new technology?
It's surprising. I think that it's really easy for a lot of firms to say they're implementing AI, they're implementing AI. Across the board, most of the mid-sized and large firms are implementing at the same speed. I think it's the firms where the leaders, I fundamentally think there's somebody on every team. If your team's a ship, your leadership team is a ship. There's somebody on every team that is poking holes in the bottom of the ship and maybe and trying to weigh it down, trying to slow down the change. This is at every firm, by the way. This is not a secret. We all know who that person is. Um, and that ship's not going to drown this week or sink this week. But it will sink because if you don't adapt, you're not going to eat eventually. And so I really see it's the firms of all sizes that are implementing the fastest are the ones that quiet the person who is poking holes in the bottom of their ship. They say, let's try this out. Let's experiment. Let's dip our toes in. Faster they dip their toes in and they try, the faster they learn as a leadership team, as an organization, what works, what doesn't, why didn't it work, and it's pretty fascinating. It's really a human experiment. And it's not necessarily the firms that are shouting AI, AI, AI.
That's interesting. So it sounds like it's a lot of trial and error, experimenting, having an open minded approach to trying something new. Is there any story or example that you can share, success story from that approach?
Oh, I can share a lot of stories, but I think I'll share a story from a recent demo I did with a managing partner and the head of AI at a sizable firm, a very large firm. And the head of AI, this is the first time I've heard this, and I thought, oh, this is wonderful. They said, we are going to implement these, so we're going to move forward with this, but we want to make sure it's implemented on the right team. And because we tried other AI and the team leaders, meaning like the mid management, they didn't want to incorporate AI for their own fears. And so we really need somebody internally who is also going to be an advocate and wants us to win as well. And I thought that's so clever and intelligent. And the fact that they learned from an experience before where not everybody in the firm is gung ho at the beginning, and that you really need everybody who's testing out the product to want the best for everybody, for their own team, for the firm, and for the AI to work. And so that I think is a great lesson for everyone to understand that it's not just leadership or not just AI, the AI specialists or the tech team specialists that need to be positive about the implementation. It really needs to be the designers, the project managers, everybody on the team needs to be positive and want the best.
How would you describe the learning curve for AI? Because I think a lot of firms are sort of questioning it or struggling with it, and there's no clear approach, clearly defined approach to it. So I'm wondering, how are you seeing firms adapt and begin to use it and incorporate it into their work?
Very inorganically. I think every firm is different. There's a lot of firms that say they have, the tech team review the AI opportunities. It's not that they don't review it. Most of them are diligent at their jobs and wonderful. It's that I think we need to understand from an operations and a leadership standpoint that that's a little bit like asking the old school guys that used to hand draw all the details to review Autodesk, right? And say, okay, this is good enough. It is an operations decision. It is not just a tech decision. And so I think we need to get more vocabulary and more comfortable, and really empower ourselves as leaders who understand the business as a whole, um, to understand kind of what the assessments are happening on the tech team so that we can better inform our own decisions.
We're talking about workplace issues on this podcast and how the workplace is changing. So what new innovations are you seeing that specifically affect the work environment as a result of AI coming into the practice?
I think overall, what we see more than anything else is less pressure on the design teams. And so we're lifting a weight when it comes to time, which we've talked about quite a bit. What's really beautiful to see and to witness is they're not just rapidly going through project after project after project now. They're breathing. They're sketching more. They're excited to dive into the next project. They're going home and seeing their families. And we all know that moment where you work really, really hard on a problem and it's not solved, it's not solved, it's not solved. And you go on a run, or in your case, go sailing, and it comes to you, right? And so having less pressure and more room to breathe and to be creative and to communicate with your clients and solve those problems with the GC or the sub before they happen. It just it makes a much happier team and a happier workplace. And ultimately, I think our projects are becoming a lot better. I mean, if you are the client and you are paying an architecture design firm to design your new headquarters, would you want a team where half the team, if not more than half the team, are in and out doing drawings, tedious work up until 10 o'clock at night trying to rush to get your project done? Would you rather have a team that is more creative and has more time to sail and has more time to cook at home with their kids? I mean, you want a happier, less pressure team so that they can communicate more, they can be more creative. Ultimately, your output is going to be a lot better than the first example. And at Thesa, we measure this as best we can. We measure how happy is your team on a scale from 1 to 100. And it's true, they become happier, and happier people produce better work. And so, how that reflects into the workplace, it's different for every project, it's different for every leader and how they're using that time. But overall, we can tell you they are happier.
I think the opportunity is there to dive deeper into understanding the client and what their needs are and how they work and the cultural aspects of that firm. And so I would think that that would be one of the bigger benefits that this tool can bring to the firms that are using it.
A lot more communication with the client. A lot of times, even if you have those clients where you've done 3 or 4 of their offices and you'd love to have the opportunity to do the next one, if you finish an office with AI, with the production AI, which I'm speaking to, but also the rendering AI, and everything is lifted because you have a little bit more time and you are a happier bunch and you are able to communicate and listen to the client more and reflect what they need in their space more. I mean, I've seen it where the teams are like, all right, we're going to permit. And they're so confident and so excited about going into permanent CA that they've asked the client to just, can we go ahead and work on the next one? What's the next one? Right. And like, when have we ever asked about that in not a stressful, when is that coming down the pipeline kind of way? Right. It's more, they're so excited. They're asking for more work from the client. And it's not because of revenue streams and or time. We're trying to allocate time accordingly, but because they're genuinely excited, I mean, I want us all to be practicing like that. That's fantastic.
I'm thinking now, what do you see as the reaction to the profession from AI? Because I think there were a couple of news stories recently about graduations where the students reacted negatively to speakers who brought AI up in their speeches. So I'm wondering, do you see any of that negative reaction in the profession?
One conversation with someone who was not happy about AI, not a client. But his daughter, who's a recent graduate, she has a friend who had 4 degrees in computer science. And so they're all a waste. So that's not affecting our industry specifically. Overall, I think everybody is pretty happy. We're slowly bringing it in, and that's a great pace. To be completely honest, it's not jumping into the deep end day one, and because of that, we're not losing any jobs. I've not heard of one job being lost in our industry because of AI, and I don't think we're going to lose that many jobs. Is it gonna be harder for early graduates to get jobs? Maybe, but there's so much work to go around, and I am not worried about that. I also think that they're gonna get jobs. The early graduates will get jobs, and then they're going to be able to do the higher senior designer work and specialize so much earlier in their career. So maybe it is a little bit of a stall for a year or two, but ultimately it's going to be great for them long term. It's much better than those of us that were copying and pasting for a decade.
You kind of touched on this earlier a little bit about the different outcomes. What's the risk that AI just becomes another way to squeeze more output per head without any of that time ever reaching the actual design and the workplace experience side of the business?
Ultimately, we're in a human business and we know that and we like that and we don't want burnout. I mean, we're already so burnt out because of the way non AI work has commoditized our work. And so, if you're able to implement AI and you give twice as much work to the same early careers or any level of career, they're going to go have a cocktail or a mocktail for Gen Z because they don't drink as much to with their friend, right? At another design firm, and they're going to realize that that friend is going to Hawaii and sketching more often, and they're going to leave in 6 months. And so I think as leaders, we need to understand that not only is that not good for us as a firm when it comes to burnout and when it comes to just firm culture, but it's also a retention issue and a hiring issue. So I haven't seen a ton of that because I think we are a human based industry, but it's good for us to be aware that that's not the way to use the time.
I think you're right that it's probably better that a firm is using it to make better projects, better staff, educating its staff much better. So I think there
Yeah.
is a real leadership component to that. And I'm wondering if what separates the firms that reinvest that freed up time into better design and mentorship from the ones that just bank it as margin?
They're inspiring. I'm inspired by them. And that, I mean, ultimately, the fruits of their labor and their leadership are going to come to fruition. I mean, in not like a generation, in like months, maybe a couple of years. There's a huge difference between the firms that are reframing and understanding how to reframe and using that time very wisely back into their people, into their teams, and those that aren't. The ones that aren't, it is expediting what was already going to happen is just a faster burn. So maybe they weren't retaining a whole lot of talent long term. This is just going to happen a lot faster. Communication is happening a lot faster. AI is being implemented faster. It's going to highlight strong leadership more, and it's also going to highlight limited leadership quite a bit more.
I feel like you're on the cutting edge and there's a challenge associated with that. But how do you see this tool evolving over time? And where do you think it's going to ultimately lead the profession?
Hope it gets us back to our roots. I hope it gets us back to really being in control rather than the tail leading the dog. I think we're going to get back in control of we can do X, Y, and Z. We can't do X, Y, and Z. Here's why. A lot more confident because if you have time to do the research and to actually absorb what you need to learn when it comes to details or codes or the 1,012 other things we need to learn. Actually have strong communication, whether that's in presentations or business development or just with the contractors and all the other consultants and the clients. Ultimately, you gain a lot more confidence. And I think we need to get back there. I think we will. For Thiso specifically, our goals are we want to double firms margins and we want to make sure that our tool, you can have the complete BIM model and the complete construction document set accurate based off of your firm specific standards in 90 seconds. And so you can get up from your desk after you have an approved test fit, go get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, come back to your desk, and it's done. And then it's on you. You design, you're in control. Um, and that to me is the ultimate where the industry needs to go.
So thinking that for a workplace that's designed with Thiso, how does that look different maybe 5 years down the road than the way somebody would design it or approach it today? I mean, I'm talking specifically about the project. Do you see any changes that would take place within the actual physical environment as a result of the AI tool being used?
I think we're going to see a lot more inventive materials because we'll have time to understand, hey, and dream, hey, we want that. Is that possible? A lot more communication with our vendors in custom. How can we update the flooring here? Can we make this kind of creative detail in the receptions here? A lot more of that. A lot more custom, but because we have the time and the budget, not in a pushed way or a forced way. So we'll have a lot, there will be a lot more custom materials, custom output.
So how about for the folks that you're talking to? What's the one thing that you wish every firm leader understood about the relationship between how their team spends time and the quality of the workplaces that they're putting out into the world?
I I think that firm leaders need to feel like they are in control, and they are. That AI is not in control. It's how you use AI that is in control. Similar to what did you want to put on your website when you first had a website, or when you had a computer? Did you want to use it just for emails, just for renderings, for your drawings, for everything? You are still in control. You are still typing, right? Or you are still editing that email. And so I think I'm going to go back to that very human. We make decisions out of love or fear every decision we make. And I think we need to look at AI and go, how can I lean into what we love to do by having AI run in the background and having AI do all the stuff that I don't like doing? And that's a much more empowering perspective than being afraid of it.
So, for a client that's looking to hire a firm, what's the question that they should ask the firm about how they're using AI?
I wouldn't ask. If I was a client, I wouldn't ask. And I think that clients are, I think they're asking because they feel like they have to ask. They want to see how up to date the firms are. But ultimately, it's not their decision to know how to run a great firm, and that they should choose the firm based off of the firm's work and personality and values, and not necessarily because they happen to have the latest and greatest of whatever tools. The firm is responsible for deciding which tools they want to use and how they want to use them, and how are they going to use that time that the tools give back.
That's a great response. We've talked about a lot of different topics. Is there anything that we've left out that you feel like is important to include in this conversation?
Now, I think just another push that you become a lot more human if you use AI and use it properly. And it's up to you how you want to use it. And so it is pretty dehumanizing to sit there and do tedious, brainless work that a middle schooler could do for many years. And I think it is absolutely inspiring and amazing to witness the leadership in our industry that's really investing in their people by using AI. So I just want to emphasize that.
So, if you look out 5 years, how do you think the profession is going to change or evolve using AI?
I think, I mean, I'm looking forward to it being really re-empowered, re-energized. I want to see Gen Z designers get excited about going into the office, uh, into the workplace. And I want to see them really leading and excited about leadership. I think Gen X, in a lot of ways, sometimes they're like, oh, what are we inheriting, right? This is an old machine. And they're doing a really great job in changing that leadership and saying, okay, we are open to change and we are going to implement AI. But I want to also see Gen Z lift to the standards that AI is going to require of them. They need to really kick it, really kick ass when it comes to being just phenomenal designers and architects.
Yeah, well, Valerie, I think what you're doing is amazing. And I think you're bringing a whole new opportunity to the profession. And I think it's going to change the way that people think about the work that we do. So it's been great to have you on the show. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy and out there chasing a lot of things, but congrats on what you've done. And we'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, Bob.